All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Andre Ramstrand. I'm a sales engineer with Salesforce.com. And today we're going to talk about the top 10 metrics that drive success within your support organization. I'm also joined by Mr. Michael Strazia, who is the Director of Support from Maxwell Systems, and he's going to share the success that Maxwell has had using the Service Cloud and Salesforce.com. So just a few questions to kick it off. How many of you are existing customers with regards to the Service Cloud that are using Service Cloud today? All right, good. Quite a number there. Excellent. And how many of you are using Service Cloud for traditional channels of support like telephony in a call center? So, okay. And how many of you are using it for non-traditional channels such as email, self-service, and let's say even social channels as well? Okay, excellent. Good mix. Awesome. So the main thrust of today's discussion is for you to understand what are the top 10 metrics that drive success within a support organization. Before we start off any Salesforce presentation, we typically start off with our safe harbor statement. You can review this on our website, www.salesforce.com/investors, and there'll be a bit of a quiz on this at the end of it, so I'm not going to go into detail on the safe harbor statement here. In terms of the agenda for this morning, what I want to do is I want to start by talking a little bit about service and support from the executive's perspective. So at the strategic level in the service organization, what is important to the support executive? And then we're going to have a look at what is important to the support manager, the people that are actually routing, handling cases, escalating cases, more at the operational level within the service organization. Another thing that's going to be very critical for you is being able to define metrics. There's not going to be the same metrics of success across all organizations. So I kind of have what I call smart metrics with regards to service and support, and what are the attributes and characteristics of metrics that are important to you. And then finally, we'll go into the top 10 metrics themselves, and then Michael is going to share his story of success that they've had at Maxwell System. We want to keep the session very open, so feel free to ask questions. If you feel that you want to ask questions in line, because it's relevant to a particular slide, you can do that. We can also have questions at the end as well. So as many of you know, you guys are Service Cloud customers, and one of the very powerful things about the Salesforce Service Cloud platform is that you can provide service across multiple channels. So you can provide service on your traditional telephony system, whether it might be a Cisco, an Avaya, a Siemens system. We also have a handful of on-demand telephony providers that provide telephony services in the cloud. So that's kind of what the first cloud is there. You can also provide service and support via email. So with Salesforce.com, we can monitor multiple inboxes on your website, and you can provide service and support by taking that email and making it an actionable item as opposed to just going into some big Outlook inbox. We have partners as well that we provide chat. So if you have the need to provide chat in a real-time integration into a call center or support environment, there's a number of partner applications. And then, of course, we have Customer Portal if you need to have customers access cases in a self-service manner, which can lead to greater deflection of cases, one of the critical areas of success for a lot of service organizations. One of the things that we're seeing that's emerging in this service and support area is community-based support. So as opposed to support agents providing the information, it's other customers helping other customers solve problems. And there's a number of things that are evolving in there. As you know, we have Salesforce Answers in that area, and we have tight integrations with a number of products to provide community-based support. And then finally, just on the right-hand side, there's obviously the emerging channels of service and support, such as Twitter and Facebook, etc. So in a nutshell, this is kind of the Service Cloud 2 offering. But what we want to talk about now is the support executive. So what is it that keeps the support executive up at night? And there's two main things that I'm hearing from a lot of my customers. The first thing is reducing cost within the support organization. So from a strategic perspective, that poor support executive has to worry about keeping costs in line. And then the other thing that they have to worry about is increasing customer satisfaction. And there's always often a balance that has to be struck between these two criteria. Perhaps you're releasing new product, and you want to be able to penetrate into greater markets, so you're going to be focusing on increasing customer satisfaction. Perhaps you're facing tight market conditions in times like these, and you're going to be more concentrated on reducing costs. So there's a balance between these two forces that occur in the mind of a support executive. On the flip side, you have your support manager. Now, the support manager has more of a tactical or operational outlook towards the support organization. He or she is responsible for managing cases as they come in via different channels, whether it's telephone, email, web, whatever the situation may be. And when those cases flow into the support organization, there's often a complex series of processes in terms of managing those cases. So there might be a complex series of how do we assign the cases? Do we assign it to agents based on skills, based on specific product proficiencies, etc.? Do we verify entitlements of those customers? So do we allow all customers to automatically get premier support, or do we have service level agreements, etc.? How do we identify the solution? So we have Salesforce knowledge, which comes into play here in terms of helping solve those customer cases, and then being able to close those cases and resolve them and report on it. Now, at the bottom of this diagram, you'll also see that there's a bit of a feedback loop. Cases often have to get escalated within service organizations. That could be based on time zone. It could be based on what type of customer it is, etc. So the poor support manager has a very complex set of support processes to manage within the support organization. So when you're thinking about defining the top 10 metrics of success, you should think of them as being SMART metrics. And this is something that we kind of borrowed from SMART decision making or SMART goal setting. And what do we mean by SMART support metrics? What are the attributes of metrics that are important for a support organization? Well, the first attribute is that it should track a specific part of a support process. As you saw from the previous slide, the support process can be quite complex. So you should be very specific in terms of the things that you want to track. Do you want to track the resolution time? Do you want to track the response time of a case? Very specific metrics are critical. The next thing to consider is that it should be measurable across all different types of systems. One of the big challenges that support organizations have is tying the metrics from the call center side, from the telephony side, with the CRM side. And it's very important to be able to bind those metrics together to get a complete view of the customer. The next criteria here is the available in real time. In order to drive success and adoption within your support organization, the metrics should be available in real time at all levels of the organization. So for the rank and file rep that's answering the phone, to the team lead, to the manager of support, to the director of support, etc. It should be related to day-in-the-life type activities. And what we mean by this is that if I'm a support rep and I have a bunch of metrics that I don't have influence over, that's going to be a source of frustration. It's going to be a source of demotivation for me. So you should define metrics that are relevant to people at their level within the organization and at their level within the service and support process. And then finally, they should be comparable across multiple time frames. In order for you to track the ongoing improvement of your support metrics, you want to be able to track them perhaps over a quarter-over-quarter basis, year-over-year basis, or even comparing product release cycles. I often deal with customers where they have a fundamental problem where they can't track metrics across comparable time frames. And Salesforce.com has some very powerful and reporting analytical engines to allow you to do that, to get trending over time with regards to support metrics. Before we carry on, I just want to note two things about support metrics. The first thing I want to note here is there is no holy grail for the series of support metrics that you will define. I think that creating support metrics is an ongoing or an evolutionary type of process. As your business changes, as new products are introduced, as competition enters the marketplace, you have to think that these metrics are going to evolve over time. In other words, there's no silver bullet for the series of metrics that are going to be important for your support organization. So with that behind us, let's actually have a look at the top 10 metrics that drive success within a support organization. I actually thought about doing this as kind of like a David Letterman top 10 list, but you could have been Paul Schaefer.
That's right. Adam Chief.
All right. So the first important metrics to understand is where are your cases coming from? And by the way, before I carry on here, I'm presenting this as a top 10 list. By no means am I implying that this is the order that's of significant for every organization. The order is going to vary by organization. But these are, from my experience, these are the top 10 metrics that I see common across many customers. So the first one here is channel mix. So where are our cases coming in? Are they coming in via phone, email, web, social? And Salesforce.com is really excellent at enabling you to do this. We have capabilities such as email to case, we have CCI integration, we have web to case forms, we have integration with Twitter and Facebook in order for you to get an idea of where your cases are coming in from. The next metric is single versus multi-touch. I personally believe that this is one of the most important metrics within a support organization. And what this basically means is when cases are coming in, are they getting solved on that first customer interaction? In other words, are they the simple, how do I reset my password type of cases? Or are they the more complex cases that require multiple people within the support organization to touch the case? And the reason why this metric is important is that it's going to drive a lot of other things that you consider about Salesforce.com. For example, if you're considering using Customer Portal, this metric will determine the mix of Customer Portal licenses that you need. This metric will determine whether you're using escalation logic or queuing logic within Salesforce.com or entitlements, etc. So if you can measure this, this is a very critical, important metric to understand within the Salesforce.com system. Self-service login frequency. So as self-service becomes more important, especially with regards to reducing cost, you're going to want to know what the login rate is of your customers into the self-service portal. And are they logging in once or twice a month? Are they logging in multiple times per month? And what type of cases are they initiating when they log in? Is it the simple one-and-done cases where they're accessing the knowledge base and solving it right away? Or is it an updating of cases as well? So this becomes a very critical metric for success. Service level targets and benchmarks. And I kind of draw a distinction between the two. The first one, service level targets, you might actually have contracts with your customers with regards to service level targets. You might be contracted for certain response times and resolution times, and Salesforce.com is very powerful in that respect. There's actually an application on the App Exchange that you could check out called the Entitlements app, which allows you to track service level targets with regards to case resolution time. And then I also put in here benchmarks. And benchmarks might not be formal contracts that you have with customers, but they might be internal goals that you have for responding to cases within a designated amount of time. Excuse me. Okay. Case handled by agent by group. So now that you have many cases coming into your support organization by multiple channels, how do you distribute them within the support organization? Are you going to distribute them to agents based on their skills, based on where they live in the organizational structure? So you're going to want to be able to measure how agents are handling cases, what their case volume is. Now, there's something implied in here. I'm kind of looking at this from the CRM perspective. There's also a telephony side of the conversation here. If you're in a high-volume call center environment, case handle might be a real-time statistic that you're tracking on your telephony system. So there's often an overlap with regards to this type of metric. Average handle versus resolution versus work time. Seems like a pretty straightforward metric, but there's a lot of subtleties at play here. When you're working with a service and support system, there's what I call the cradle to grave time that a case is open. So from the moment that the case gets logged to the moment that it gets closed. But that's not the only time-based metric that you're interested in. There's often the amount of time that you're working on the case or waiting for the customer to respond to you. So this is also a critical metric to track, whereby you want to be able to track work time versus cradle to grave time versus customer wait time, etc. Michael, I think you had some experience in this area with this one.
Yeah, we actually ended up building our own case timer because for us, that average handle and first call resolution is key. So being able to really track that, when did that come in, how many touches, how long was the actual work time, has really been at the root of a lot of the metrics that we track regularly.
Excellent. Thank you. Case deflection rate. So as going back to the previous slide where we talked about the strategic outlook of service and support and the importance of reducing cost, this goes hand in hand with case deflection, right? So when customers start using the self-service portal, customer portals, when they start going to public knowledge bases, you're going to want a very accurate way of measuring the case deflection. So for example, let's say that I'm a customer and I go into the knowledge base and I search for a reset password article. It's not just good enough to know that I searched for the reset password article, but what's more critical is that did that deflect the case or not? And we need to be able to log that back into the CRM system so when you drive reporting and analytics, you can see the number of cases that were deflected without even having an agent being involved in the support process. And this is critical. I have a lot of customers that come to me and they say, you know what, Andre, I bill for support. At the end of the year, I go to my customer and I say, hey, we had a contract with you and there was 1,000 cases that were served. And the customer is like, well, we're not getting value out of those 1,000 cases. But if I can go back to that customer and I can say, well, 1,000 cases were served, but 1,500 cases were deflected, then it changes the game, and there's a very different story that you will have with your customers when it comes to negotiating contracts for service and support. First call resolution. So what are the percentage of cases that are getting resolved out of the gates on that first telephone call versus being transferred to other departments versus requiring other people to work on the case as well? Cost per call. Now, cost per call is a very important metric, especially because of its alignment with the strategic goals of the support executive. However, it's also a very tricky metric to measure, especially if you're in a call center environment. So if you're in a call center environment, you're going to want some tight integration between your telephony system and your CRM system, Salesforce.com, in order to measure your cost per call. And that's why it's very important to, going back to the SMART definition, it's very important to be able to measure this metric across your entire support process. I work with a lot of customers where we will integrate with their telephony system in a batch manner to pull in call statistics in order to be able to calculate cost per call. So it's a very critical metric. And then the final and perhaps most important metric is the customer satisfaction index. Now, in your support organization, you might have a customer satisfaction index that's just internal to your company. You might have something like a net promoter score, which is used throughout your industry, et cetera. The other thing is how do you gather your customer satisfaction metrics? There's a number of ways of doing that within Salesforce.com. One way is that upon the conclusion of a case, you can set up Salesforce.com to automatically email a web form or a hyperlink to a web form where they can answer a web-based survey. So we have a number of vendors that provide surveying capabilities for measuring customer satisfaction. Another thing that I've seen that's very interesting is that we can integrate with your IVR system. So here I am as an agent, I'm talking on the phone with the customer. At the conclusion of the call, I can transfer the customer to an IVR survey. And on this IVR survey, you can ask the customer, on a scale from 1 to 5, rate the level of knowledge of the support rep. On a scale from 1 to 5, rate your overall support experience. And you're gathering this information on your telephony system, feeding it back into Salesforce.com to drive reporting and analytics. So customer satisfaction is a very critical metric, and there's a number of interesting things that we can do with Salesforce.com in order to enable you to gather that metric. So those are the top 10 metrics for the service and support organization. At this point, I want to introduce Michael, Director of Support for Maxwell, and he's going to share his story with us. Thank you, Michael.
Hi, folks. So Andre's told you a lot of the things that Salesforce does. Top 10 items, for the most part, those are largely out of the box. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our experience. We've been on Salesforce about a year as far as fully integrated CRM about 2.5 years for the sales end of it. We're a medium, well, a small-sized software company, 232 employees, and we provide software to the construction industry, sort of ERP, accounting software, job cost accounting, estimating, that sort of thing. So as you can imagine, it's been a rather challenging year for us in this economy. But one of the things that our integration with Salesforce has allowed me to do as the person that is responsible for running the customer contact centers is to maintain our staff by demonstrating the value of retaining that customer lifetime relationship. You know, how do you continue to drive that customer satisfaction? How do you keep from losing the customers you've got? It's much more cost effective to keep the customers you've got than to try and go acquire new ones in this economy. So I'm going to tell you a little today about how we were able to achieve some amazing results in only about 12 months time frame, and some of the things that frankly I didn't think were possible. I'm an old school support guy. You know, 20 years ago I did support for Intuit. I've worked at very, very large call centers managing big teams like for AOL and places like that. I left large companies to work for a small software company because it was nimble and you're able to put in changes and really measure and manage at a smaller level. You know, in a larger company it used to take you 18 months to put in a new case tracking piece of software. Well, those days are gone. You know, I listened to Procter & Gamble, who was able to do this in a matter of 3 or 4 months. So, you know, I think the benefits of the cloud and Salesforce has really leveled that. Now large enterprise companies can move as quickly as the smallest, nimblest, smart software companies. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our road to the performance that we're currently now seeing. I thought I'd start with our integrated tool set. Yes, sorry, not your knowledge engine up there. We use Salesforce as our CRM, and it's tightly integrated with our telephony. We're using the CTI call adapter. How many folks use CTI right now? Great, that's good. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to get more measurement, more metrics out of that, and do a better job of really getting the full value out of CTI. We've been on that, like I said, about a year. We're looking at some exciting stuff around that piece. We use Talisma for our knowledge management, like I said, and we're very excited about Q1 moving to Salesforce for knowledge. Who does KCS out here? That's great. We've done some really interesting things with tying our numbers to KCS. So knowledge-centered support, which for the rest of you that don't use that, the reps actually build the knowledge articles and they attach those to the cases. And what that's allowed us to do is really determine some interesting customer demographics. And the next step for us is to start to get in front of support cases and be assumptive and push information based on those demographics. So we're able to tell that, you know, in the first 6 months, an accounting software customer who has completed their professional services engagement may be looking at these types of solutions. So some of the things that we can do is start to push some of that to that customer. We've also used the knowledge or the customer portal. So when they log in, they can look at their cases. They can look at, you know, how was it solved last time this occurred. Right there, we're also starting to push new information to them based on their demographic. Very exciting stuff for us, and we're pretty excited about some of the vendors we're seeing in the show so far. ShoreTel also ties in nicely to Salesforce. That was one of our easier connective pieces. CTI was challenging. I think you've probably heard, you know, how you tune that and really get the speed you're looking for. But that's been able, we've been able to take about 21% out of our average handle time, and that's a part of it. So that screen pop's an important piece. So this is the customer zone. This is where I apologize for the busyness. We're sort of on the old Salesforce UI still where you had the ubiquitous left-hand nav area. But basically, this is what the customer sees when they come into our customer portal. You can see your cases, you can search the knowledge base, and you can chat live with the rep. We're using chat very effectively. I participate in the SSPA or the TSIA now. Is anybody else members of SSPA? Great. So benchmarking against our industry and peer-sized businesses lets us really measure those metrics, our key performance indicators. And like I said, those key performance indicators have allowed us to actually grow our support organization in this difficult economy. And that's because we can measure the value that we're bringing to the table and tie that back to, what are the articles that are being used, what is the retention on those customers, what's their satisfaction. We use click tools and we survey on a quarterly relationship survey, sort of an extensive relationship survey. But we also survey about 10% of our support cases. And so we compare the Net Promoter Score for those cases to the relationship survey. And I'm happy to say that for the most part, support trends higher than the average relationship survey. So we're doing a good job in support, and I can prove it, which is a really nice place to be if you're running a contact center, especially these days where, like Andre said, the goal is to reduce costs. We're actually a profit center. We're the single largest profit center for our company. But we realize our model is changing. Support and maintenance, that's the golden goose, the cash cow, but customers are starting to migrate away from that. They're less and less willing to pay for all these features that they don't use. So they're migrating towards the cloud, and our support organization is actually helping to test the water in that. Like I said, we're a smaller software company, not exactly leading edge. Our customer base is not exactly leading edge. Most contractors, they can use a browser very efficiently and maybe a spreadsheet. Not early adopters. But I think what we're seeing is that people are starting to look at that web experience. So we're starting to train our customers to go to the web for support solutions, to go to the web for, interactions with live chat and that sort of thing. And it's really helped us to take some serious cost out of the support organization.
Hey, Michael, let me just ask you, I noticed two things on there that you're doing different than customers do traditionally with the support portal, and namely downloads and online class registration. Can
That's
you talk
right.
a little bit about that?
Certainly. Again, this has been a place to take some cost out, which is all of our software is available for download. We used to ship and shrink wrap software, again, kind of old school, but you can also register for online classes. And if support techs are getting calls from a customer and it says, based on what you're seeing for that customer, they really could use some general ledger training, we can take them out to the customer zone and right there and have them sign up. And it actually goes against the schedule in our professional services organization. So we're able to tie that pretty quickly to availability and training, or get them downloadable training on specific modules. So there's a lot of, what are we calling it? Basically our training materials, once they're really proven and successful and become part of our standard training offering, we're recording them and making them available for customers that are under a support contract. So, customer impact trends. These, some of the really important things up here. Willingness to recommend Maxwell. This, like I said, the Net Promoter Score, extremely important. We've been able to dramatically impact this, and this is actually part of the key performance indicators that are on each of our support techs' desktop when they log into Salesforce. Some of these key trends are what they see when they go into Salesforce. So they're able to see our Net Promoter Score, they're able to see our average backlog age, and our first call resolution rate. And this is something that if you talk to our support techs, they take really personally, which is, to me, a fantastic sign that we've got the right goals in place. And these are goals that I'm compensated on and goals that our president of the company knows. I'll get a call from him asking, why our average handle time spiked. So they look at this, and that's one of the beautiful things about Salesforce is it puts this information out there for everyone to see, and it creates fosters a new environment of sharing that information and your performance. So sales guys can get in here and look at this. When we hear from sales guys saying, hey, you're not getting it done for my customer, we can go show them, look, here's good information to take back to that customer base. Let's see if our competitors can beat this. Here's our data. Our average handle time is improving dramatically. Case backlog age. This, if you'd asked me Q1 2007, if we would ever get to where we're at now, under 400 cases on a backlog, I would have said that was impossible. But what this has allowed us to do is really make those micro-tuning pieces. So we have our key performance indicators that anybody has that you absolutely positively have to measure in a support organization. But with the Salesforce integration, we can start to, like I said, really segment where is the impact on reducing call types. So if we just had a new software release, did we see a spike? What were the types of cases that those customers were contacting us about? It also gives us leverage to drive the direction of our software business itself. So we have a lot stronger voice at the table with our development team, our quality team, and product managers. We can take things to the table quicker and more definitive with severity and impact statements than we've ever been able to in the past. So just about anything you can imagine, you can measure now. But like I said, we've got our key performance indicators. We're constantly measuring and managing those little tertiary pieces that allow us to tune and supercharge the business. So business challenge, deflecting unnecessary contacts. Our customer zone has been tremendously effective there, and we're really looking at ways to extend that relationship, that online relationship with the customer. One thing that we really need to get to, and probably all you guys share this, is what is our real deflection rate? How effective is that knowledge base? Right now I really don't feel like I've got good data around that, and that's one of those things I'm hoping our friends at Salesforce will really help us to measure. But it's important. I think that's the last mile on really getting full value out of KCS, out of your knowledge portal, out of your customer online experience, and really being able to measure bang for the buck as far as what you've invested into changing that customer experience. Speed time to value. So this was, if you went to the SSPA conference in Vegas, one of their big keynote speeches and actually one of the books that they came out with around this was how do you speed the time to value for a customer? And that's core. I mean, when you get right down to it, that's what that customer wants to know. If they're buying your product, how long does it take me to get full value out of that? For us, we sell fairly complex accounting software. That time to value can be 1 month, could be 3 months. Really reducing the time around that and starting to get them incremental value, has been really key. And that actually is core to retention. If we're able to measure that customer experience in that 0 to 90 days, that most critical point of somebody ramping up on a new piece of complex back office software, we're able to intervene before they get sideways and put out some of those fires. And so being able to measure that customer experience as they are using our support centers within those critical periods and flagging those customers that are in those critical periods has really enabled us to speed that time to value. One of our goals is to reduce our average integration time, and it's come down about 4 days right now. We've only been on this about 6 months. So our average is down about, 4 days. And for every day that we can reduce that, we're able to take a significant amount of cost out as well. Technology challenge. So tying the KB to support case handling, driving self-service offerings, fulfilling the self-service promise. That's been a real challenge for us because we're, like I said, a small software company. We deliver custom high-end boutique support. Our support technicians need to have an accounting background. They need to have an IT background. It's helpful if they have some construction industry. So these are very highly skilled support technicians. And we don't really do tiered support because we've been able to eliminate that tier 0, tier 1 with effective self-service and web case management. Most of our customers pay between $20,000 and $50,000 a year for their annual support and maintenance. So their expectations are very high. When they call in, they want service and they want it now, and they've probably tried the basics. They've probably searched the knowledge portal. They've probably looked at the help guides. And that's not necessarily true for our newer customers. So they're not so familiar with our software. Our average customers have been with us about 10 years, and our average support techs have been with us about 12 years. So it's really different from the support industry that probably you guys are in or that I grew up in. So the tools and what you measure are also very different. And Salesforce has given us the flexibility to tune for those customers in that different stages of their lifetime. So as a new case comes in, we can flag that and have a custom case template that says they're 0 to 90 days. And we've also built an algorithm based on customer value, based on customer age, based on number of products owned, that actually gives that case handling a score. So techs don't have to go in there and figure out in their case queue, how important is this case? There's a number right on it. And it helps them to make better decisions. It really helps speed that time to value. So those are some of the things that we've really been able to just get crazy creative with. We have a fantastic administrator, developer, really smart guy, and so far we've not been able to stump him. The reporting engine in Salesforce is outstanding. Just about anything that we can dream up, we can measure and manage. So I think that's about it. Are we on to questions now?
Yeah, I think we're on to questions. There was just
the
this last part about how it tied back to the metrics.
Right.
All right.
We've got an aisle mic there for people to ask questions.
Great.
Okay. So there's a mic in the center of the floor there for questions.
Andre, I have one question related to one of the metrics that you mentioned in one of your initial slides with reference to the channel mix.
Yep.
Now we have a BlackBerry deployment as well with our Salesforce, and we want to track between BlackBerry and laptop, which is the preferred mode of requesting a new case. And so far we haven't been able to figure out a way to do that. And that's what I heard from support as well. So is that true? And if yes, then is it a workaround?
So I'll give a quick answer, but maybe we'll go into depth in offline a little bit. But I'm pretty sure when cases are logged via BlackBerry, there's a field of data that says what is the client type that submitted the case, whether it's a browser client.
User agent?
Pardon me?
The user agent?
Yeah, there's some field of data. I don't know the exact, but basically it's like, was it submitted via browser or was it submitted via mobile device?
There's one field which says case origin, and it has got 3 values of web, email, phone, but they get populated as web or email or phone, but if somebody's doing it through BlackBerry, then it doesn't get populated.
Why don't we take it offline? I see a gentleman here shaking his head that he knows the answer to it as well. So we'll take that question in the parking lot maybe. Thank you.
I think the short answer is you can measure it. We've done it, and you can also trend that. What is your case satisfaction from those different channels?
So it can be done.
So questions for both of you. How do you go about measuring deflected calls? What constitutes to you a deflected call?
Right. That case deflection, that's the holy grail of our web knowledge center. And right now we've got what everybody else has, which is, did this solve your problem? Check the box, and it's weak.
Yeah, but that is such a small percentage.
Right.
So have you come up with other methods? And
Yeah.
it's interesting, a number of companies have different ways of what they'll call a deflected call. And
Right.
what's the best practice there?
Well, to be honest, there's not a best practice. I mean, I think we tackled this in breakout sessions at SSPA a few weeks ago, and there's really not a best practice or industry accepted practice for definition of deflected call. But what we've done to really try and determine or work the trend line, what we do is work the trend line. We know it's not absolute data, but what we do is look at periodically we'll go through the browser log to find, what's it called? Access log to our website to find out what is that customer traversing. Did they search and did they leave, or did they go back and search again? And then we'll try and tie that back to whether they actually checked they were satisfied or not. And so if we can get a rough correlation of that, when we go back and look at that number, we find that maybe 4% actually check the box yes or no, and we can look at the browser logs and determine how many people are searching and then leaving the site. It's rough, and that's the best we can do.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
that's a very important question. And one of the things that, from an implementation perspective, that I encourage customers to do is that, let's say someone is using the knowledge base to query a problem. Once they've queried the problem and the knowledge base is returned with a solution, and you ask that question, did this help you or not? And they say yes, then what we do is we make an API call into Salesforce to create a dummy case. So a case that just has basic fields of information filled in, and the case is automatically closed. And from a reporting perspective, then, you report on cases that have been opened and closed and touched by agents versus on these so-called dummy cases that were created as a result of just a search. And then now you have the ability to measure deflection of cases. But it is something that needs to be considered in the implementation process.
Yeah, that piece is still completely dependent upon that customer checking the box.
Yeah, at some level you need human intervention. I mean, we can't read the mind of the customer.
But we're working on it. Right?
Yeah.
As for Maxwell, how were you able to calculate your average call time? I don't know if ShoreTel was a hosted environment where or was it on-premise? How were you able to get that data back to Salesforce?
We're able, through the integration of ShoreTel and Salesforce, we're actually able to tie a call to that case. So we look at how long was the call duration and how long was that case agent duration. So we've got average call time, real minutes out of the phone system, tied to case average handled time. So it's Talisma's
ShoreTel, you mean?
I'm sorry, ShoreTel. Yeah. ShoreTel is ties directly. You get data directly in. You're able to match those pretty quickly to cases.
So another thing about just CTI integration in general is that your telephony system will gather way more information about a call than what you would want to place into the CRM system.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is if a call comes in to the first agent, there's the amount of time it sits in queue. There's the amount of time that the first agent speaks to them. Maybe I transfer them to another queue, or I do a warm transfer to another agent. There's going to be lots and lots of data that's going to be gathered on the telephony system. You don't want to try to replicate all of that data into CRM.
Right.
You want to aggregate it at a certain level and push it into CRM and then synchronize it with case information. So don't think that you're going to get all of the low-level granular telephony information into CRM, and nor would you necessarily want to. You want to aggregate it at a certain level maybe on a daily level or on a per agent level or whatever, push it into CRM and then correlate it with case information that lives within Salesforce.com.
Right. We can do a join based off of customer information and really tie those, but we only do it periodically to look at that.
Hi, first Colonel, then a question. With respect to the case deflection, the information's in the cloud, so your highest intelligence level is actually residing with your agent.
Yep.
So if you had a screen pop and your customer's calling you, the screen pop can ask the agent, is this call related to any previous self-service items? And you check in the cloud to see the history.
Right.
And if it's related to any of them, you check it off, and that way you have much more accurate rendition. Did you actually deflect calls? Because all the previous items are deflections that are true because it didn't result in a call.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We haven't even looked at that.
And then you get the opportunity to ask the customer, how did that self-service work out? And you can ask them to fill out a survey that actually helps improve your Net Promoter Score because you care about what they think.
Right.
So the question I had was with respect to the first call resolution. It looked very smooth and gradual. And I'm trying to understand whether it was the implementation of your projects or was it advanced training of your people responding to the call?
It was both. The tools gave us the visibility, and these projects gave us the visibility. You know, when we first rolled out Salesforce, we saw a spike in our average handle time, as anybody would expect, and that came back down and, you know, predictably below what our average handle time was before. But we were able to actually change the structure of the support teams into smaller squads. And the squad component has been a very effective management tool where we're able to group cases and types and customer demographics now and focus a small squad of support engineers directed at that. So they're really able to really make some significant traction on the deeper dives and the things that may have taken us much longer time in the past. That being said, our same call, our first call resolution has been our greatest improvement. So better segmentation of that incoming traffic to the right support technicians has maybe been our biggest gain in that area.
I'll make two comments on that. In terms of driving screen pop, it can be a challenge. There's essentially three ways of driving screen pop. There's the caller ID, what's called the ANI. There's the 800 number that they dial into, or there's information collected digits. Now, when I talk to customers, 90% of my customers want to drive screen pops based on caller ID. The unfortunate thing about caller ID is it's the least reliable way of driving a screen pop.
Yep.
And the reason why is that if they're calling from their home phone or their mobile phone, or if they're calling even from within their company, the number that gets broadcasted is not their individual extension, but it's the trunk that's going out of their main switch. So, yeah, so that's why IVR validation tends to be a better way of doing it. The other thing I'll just comment on there is if you have the capability of doing IVR validation, I see a lot of customers doing data dips into Salesforce.com to influence call routing. So caller comes in, we know it's Stephen Jobs, we do a data dip, we determine that his account is Apple Computer, he's a 5-star customer, we pop him to queue with a priority 1. Customer calls in, it's Bill Gates, we know that he's a 3-star customer, we pop him to queue with a priority 5. Just an example.
Theoretically. Yeah.
But absolutely. So that's just one comment. The other comment I want to make to you a little bit about first call resolution and deflections in general is from a self-service perspective, you might see some results that you don't expect when people start adopting self-service on the call center side. And let me explain what I mean by that. Let's say that you implement self-service and you have a wonderful knowledge base and all of a sudden customers are searching and finding problems. Life's going to be good. What it means, however, is when they call the call center, so call volume is probably going to drop on the call center because more people are going to self-service. However, when they call the call center, it means that they're calling with a real problem, a more complex problem. So handle time tends to go up on the call center side. So it's very interesting that when you see adoption of certain technologies, you might have unexpected results on the other channels. So just two little comments there for you. Thank you.
Question for both of you. There's been other sessions talking about driving revenue from your contact center through cross-selling and upselling. Have you seen any best practices on how to measure that from the support center or the contact center?
You know, I can say that that's something, a target-rich environment for improvement for us. We've come away from this conference with some really good ideas. And probably the first thing we're going to work on is doing a better job of driving our professional services sign-up and revenue. But there's for us, it's really simpler since our products are becoming more and more modular. We can find out, you know, are you using this module? Did you know that we have an estimating module? And doing more of that. We've not done it effectively in the past. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for us.
I'll make a comment on that. There's actually, not to plug a specific partner, but There is a partner technology on the expo floor, a company called Informavores. They make a product called Firefly. Yeah. And what it is it's a visual decision tree engine, if you would. It can be used in many different scenarios. It can be used in call scripting. One of the things that it can be used in is cross-sell and upsell. And what I mean by that is the agent is handling a case, and they close the case. When they close the case, it can launch one of these decision trees hosted by this company called Informavores. And the decision tree can have very sophisticated logic. For example, it can say, what is the service level agreement of the customer? What products do they have? And based on that dynamic interrogation of the case, it can actually pop the agent to another HTML screen where they can elicit more information from the customer, where they could create a lead or an opportunity, etc. So upon case closure, you could use a technology like that to drive additional behavior on the agent side. Another cool thing about the product is it has the ability to make API calls. So going back to your original question, how do you track it? Not only can it push a dynamic screen up in front of the agent, but it can make an API call to a custom object or a custom field to check a box to say that, yes, it was an upsell or a cross-sell, and then you can drive reporting and analytics. So I would encourage you to check out that technology. It's used a lot in outbound telesales type of environments, etc.
Regarding the deflection rate, understanding that there are many inherent difficulties in measuring it, what would you consider to be a very, very good deflection rate?
The goal that we're shooting for, and I think an industry goal, is about 19%. If you're achieving that, you're really knocking the cover off the ball, I think.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Well, here's our system administrator extraordinaire, Nate Schilling, joined us in the back. He's built so many amazing tools, tracking and measuring. And he comes to us with ideas. Did you know you could track this and trend on that? He's pushed the envelope for us, done a tremendous job.
I had a question. When you're talking about metrics over there, one of the metrics you focused on was it was called, you basically had...
You want me to put it back up?
Yeah, if you don't mind. I think it was... Yeah, you had the single versus multi-touch, where I think it was metric number 9.
Yeah.
Where you spoke about basically how do you, and then later on you had somewhere you had first call resolution. So can you define how do you differentiate both the metrics over there?
So single versus multi-touch is just, it's one that we use a lot to determine the kind of, it's used a lot when we talk about customer portal and the type of licensing that you will need on customer portal. So I'm kind of, it's a bit of a leading metric that I have here. One of the things about the Salesforce.com customer portal is that there's two types of licenses. There's a user-based license. Every time someone logs in, they consume a license. And there's a usage-based license. Okay. And if you're able to measure your single versus multi-touch, it influences your licensing model that you'll have on customer portal as one example. Single versus multi-touch will also influence a number of other things in terms of implementation within the Salesforce.com system itself. First call resolution is a little bit different in the sense of first call resolution is a little bit more of a telephony-centric metric. Okay. When the call comes in, is it resolved on that first telephone call?
And this is more on the portal side.
Yeah, so it's a little bit, it's a channel perspective that kind of differentiates those two. Yeah.
Okay. We also look at cases that were solved first call and then touched by multiple technicians. So was this escalated 2 or 3 times? So you may have 2 or 3 touches or contacts on a case.
So how do you track that actually? We struggle with the same challenge that sometimes, as you show that, you have to escalate the case to different people based on different geographic locations or skill levels. So how do you guys...
So that if that agent adds activities to that case, we'll search for cases that were solved same day that have multiple activity owners.
Okay. So you can report by multiple activity owners?
Yeah, you can build a report to show that.
Okay. Yeah, let's speak about that because that's actually a very common challenge for the customer. So number 5 here, average resolution time, like the cradle to grave time of the case versus the work time.
Right.
Very classic problem. So there's a number of ways you can solve this with Salesforce.com. With out-of-the-box functionality, you can do what Mike just alluded to, which is just using activities, and you might customize the activity record a little bit to, say start time, end time. The other way I've seen customers do it is they create an entire separate custom object. They create a custom object called work time. And then on that, and so they have a custom object there. And then what we do is we might build something like a little Adobe Flex timer control. So you're on the case, you click the little stopwatch, it starts counting, it knows who you're logged in as, you hit stop, and then it logs it to that custom object, and then you drive reporting and analytics off of that.
So do you manually click on start and stop in that case?
Pardon
Do
me?
you have to manually click start and stop? The agent has to manually click that, or is it an automated process?
You
When
have
you
to
log
manually
in?
hit start and stop, yeah.
Okay.
Now, if you want to be able to track, if you don't want, at some level the agent has to hit start and stop. Even with a computer telephony system, a CTI system, agents are going available, unavailable, wrap state. There is some level of human intervention required at some level or not, yeah. So.
And usually you found that it works fine.
Well, again, it's not absolute number of minutes in the day, but if, it's what I use it for is to determine if we have an effective escalation path or if we've got boundary case types that we need better training for. So if we see a case type for year-end processing on our accounting software that's getting touched 2 or 3 or 4 times, I know we need to look at those teams for training. So I don't use it to manage every minute of that technician's productivity. It's more effective for us for determining training needs.
Okay. Thank you.
I will mention one last comment there. There's an application on the AppExchange called the Entitlements application, which is going to become part of the core system. And the Entitlements application allows you to track work time versus resolution time on cases. So when you create a case and it has a certain status, you can say that this is a stop status. And if it's in the stop status, waiting for customer reply, etc., then the Entitlements app will not count time against the case. So I'd encourage you to check out that Entitlements app on the AppExchange. It does that. The other thing about this Entitlements app is that it allows you to have service level agreements in multiple different ways. You can have general classes of service level agreements, like a gold, silver, bronze service level agreement. You can have account-specific service level agreements, or even asset-specific service level agreements. Maybe you have a customer that bought a phone switch from you and it has a different service level agreement than the projector. So it's a very flexible and powerful application. So check it out on the AppExchange.
Hi, yes. This question is for Mr. Strasia. I was curious about your experience in terms of how many agents do you have and how many people do you have dedicated towards servicing your knowledge base as well as building out the reporting and the systems?
Our support organization is small. It's about 53 people, and they're across the country in 5 different contact centers. And every one of the technicians, as with KCS, are responsible for maintaining that knowledge base. But we do have 5 different KDE, or knowledge domain experts, that are kind of the traffic cops on quality for our maintaining that case solution quality.
Can I ask a question on the customer sat? How do you choose the 10% that you send, on the cases? Which ones you actually send to?
It's random. So it's Nate may have built that. It's sort of a random sampling built into Click Tools. And again, if you're not using Click Tools, it's the best I've found so far is really very effective for surveying your customers.
Have you ever thought about doing it to all of them?
We have, but like I said, we've got a kind of a small customer base, about maybe 10,000 customers, and it would just be too many touches. It'd drive them crazy.
Good point.
Yeah.
All right. Good questions. Excellent questions.
One of the things I was looking to try and build out and never have quite figured out is, I do send surveys to customers, and I send it to all customers because I figure I get them all the time, right? What the heck, I don't have to answer if I don't want to. And in fact, we don't get a whole lot of answers. We get about 10% actually. But the thing I really wanted to do is say, okay, if I got one from you in the last 30 days, then don't send another one.
Right.
And I haven't figured out how to do that yet.
Well, I think you can do that within Click Tools. If they've been surveyed Correct me if I'm wrong, Nate. I think you can do that within ClickTools. I don't remember. Right.
Oh.
I'm sorry. That
That
just gives you
manages it on the front end before it gets to
right.
ClickTools.
We just simply identify that that case needs to send a survey based on the rules that you've defined for us, Michael. No, ClickTools is a separate, it's hosted by their server, and really what they allow you to do is define different surveys, and a unique URL is given to you to put in your email templates that are sent from Salesforce or sent manually if you use some other email service. And then in that email, the URL, if you have special fields like maybe it's a portal user ID or the account ID or especially the case ID, it's merged into that URL as a parameter so that when the customer clicks on it, we know who it is, and then ClickTools can push the data back into Salesforce through the API.
That's cool.
I know how.
Right. Yeah, what Nate was saying is essentially that last survey date is populated on that customer record. And so if that customer record is date minus 90 days, we're not surveying.
That's a good offline question. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, folks. I hope you enjoyed the session. I hope you enjoyed Dreamforce. Please fill out the survey.